is no good. Rebounded by Anthony. 2 seconds left. Anthony for the win. Cody rolls it. Cole Anthony gives the Magic a victory.
Close Up Magic.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Close Up Magic. I'm your host, Stephen Cameron, and today we got a really fun episode. The NBA lottery just happened yesterday. The Orlando Magic have picks 6 and 11, which is really exciting. We're going to have Malik Grady and CJ Hill to join us in just a moment to just kind of like break everything down and kind of talk and think about our thoughts and feelings about this offseason now that we kind of know where we're landing. But before we get into that, we're going to get into the housekeeping stuff that's just going to, keep this podcast rolling. If you're listening or watching this, make sure you like and subscribe wherever you are doing that. If this is a YouTube, hit that sub button, please. If this is a podcast platform, go ahead and leave us a little 5-star review. All that stuff helps us. This podcast is hosted by 19 Media. 19 Media helps us do cool, dope shit like have an affiliate program with the NBA.com store. So if you're looking for dope NBA gear, go ahead and hit that affiliate link in the show description. Doesn't really give you a discount. It just gives me a little bit of a kickback to help keep this show rolling and being able to give you all content. Without further ado, let me introduce Mr. Malik Grady and Mr. CJ Hill. How y'all doing tonight? What's going on?
What's happening?
You doing all right, Malik?
What it do, baby?
Doing it, do.
I'm doing good, man.
Sir.
It's a good time of year.
It is a good time of year. We got the playoffs going on. We got the I don't know what the score is for the Celtics Heat right now, but we do know the Nuggets, who I am hoping to keep going, are up 1-0 versus the Lakers. Do you guys have any quick playoff thoughts before we get into it? Malik, I'm going to kick it to you first, and I'm going to kick it to you for the West Coast teams. Give me a quick 1 to 2 minute thoughts on who you want to win the West, go to the finals between the Lakers and the Nuggets, and why.
The biggest thing I'm rooting for, number one, I want a 6-game series. I want as much basketball as possible. That's number one. I was thinking about when it comes to rooting for teams now, my son Elijah always puts it straight. He's always like, Daddy, which team are we rooting for? He wants to know which team do we hate, which team do we love when he comes and I'm watching basketball. And if he came in, I'm watching the team, I would probably say the Lakers because I want to see LeBron and AD kind of keep things going. As weird as it is, I haven't really rooted for LeBron and that kind of thing. It was fun to watch them fight so hard in that first game against the Nuggets. Jokic is doing some all-time things out there. You have some really interesting players, but that's a series that I want to see go as many games as possible. I like seeing the adjustments that all the players and Darvin Ham and the coach Malone are making. You have the altitude, that kind of stuff. So that's my first thought with them. Go as many games as possible and see some of these wild players that are all-time greats just show out on the greatest stage. And that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm personally for the Nuggets. Not that I don't think like LeBron. Not that I'll be upset if LeBron goes again. He's one of the greatest players to ever walk the court. Jokic is dope, but he in a multi-time MVP, but we will never look at him the same as LeBron for many reasons. And to continue LeBron's legacy, is always exciting. But Jokic, I want him to have a little bit more validation, and also I'm rooting for my guy AG. I know Magic fans hate him, but I don't. So, yeah, and I also just love the city of Denver, and I want good things for those people.
Broncos.
CJ, as a Raider fan, I did not hear that.
Right.
CJ, I'm going to kick it over to you.
That's right.
Since you were literally just watching the first game between the Heat and the Celtics. Quick, who do you want to win and why?
Oh man, I'm torn. I gotta go Jimmy Buckets. You can't go. I know, but at this time of year, you just gotta go Jimmy Buckets. I love Tatum and Brown, but I'm going Heat in 6. No, excuse me, Heat in 7. I think it'll be 7 games. I think it'll go the whole stretch. But yeah, you can't go against Jimmy Buckets, man. He got at least a 50 piece in him at some point in the series. So Heat in 7.
So that's what you want to happen. That's what you expect to happen. Because I have to give it up to the Heat. Jimmy Buckets, like you said, keeps on getting it done. But I still hold on very tightly to my sports hate of the Heat as a Magic fan, trying to keep that rivalry going. Like, I don't want them to win, but they continue just gutting it out and showing me things that I've really never seen. Honestly, I've never seen a team as depleted as them just continue to be like, how about we do this? And you're like, wait, wasn't that guy on the bench a minute ago? Wasn't that guy on waiver? Like Kevin Love and Duncan Robinson were like cast-offs. No one wanted them. Persona non grata, and they're killing it. So
like drug up and down Twitter, NBA Twitter all season, and now he's
getting paid to do it. So I don't.
Here's my thing with Miami. I obviously don't like them during the regular season, but as soon as the Magic are out, I'm always psyched when Florida does well.
Okay.
Right. And yeah, Miami is a rival of Orlando, but I pull for Florida as a state, and I'd much rather see a Florida team win over Boston and get to the finals. And it has really nothing to do with like who's on the team and the players. It's more like the state that I'm from.
The regional thing. I got you.
And I feel, and I think I even feel stronger about it because I live out of state now. I no longer live in Florida, and that might have something to do. Like if I still lived in Florida, I'm not sure I'd feel the same way. But I just want nice.
Have to deal with Heat fans, probably.
I'll have to deal with Heat fans. I mean, I still have to deal with Heat fans, but yeah, just not as often in real life. So that's kind of my thoughts. But again, I don't really care. The teams I was psyched on for the what East got out in the first round, so it's whatever. I'm so less emotionally attached to the Eastern teams. It's fine.
How are you feeling with Golden State out? I mean, is it weird for you? I know that was kind of a
not really. I don't like how they went out because it was just kind of like they got flamed on the last game. But like this team had drama all year. There was chemistry issues all year. The punch to the face, even if Jordan Poole was being a little bit of a cocky bitch, that fucked things up because not only did it mess things up, but the team like stood by Draymond so much harder than they stood by Poole.
And there were leaks and stuff.
And there was leaks. And then like you got Draymond going up and down, making comments about it, like even like weird comments on his podcast. And even just like the way things were handled within the media, like you could tell the team was more on Green's side than Poole's. And it didn't even really have anything to do with like who was right or wrong in that situation. They just didn't back Poole up to the way it should have been, the way they should have. And so there's just, I think like a lot of like weird confidence and chemistry issues there.
Well, then there was
guys
contract
old
stuff.
And tired. Yeah. I don't know if the contract stuff had much to do with like on-court play.
Well, I guess what I mean is that you had the punch. Yeah, Draymond saying I should be paid. Then they paid Poole.
Yeah.
Poole played like crap. And then Clay says I should get paid. Now Draymond says, well, maybe I can't get paid. So there's a whole lot of off-the-court stuff happening, you know?
It's just like, So, I mean, circling back to your original question, how do I feel about them being out? I don't know if I expected them to go deep in the first place.
But not like that.
A little sad on how they got out. But you know, like them losing to this Lakers team, I don't think is a disgrace. It's just kind of more of annoying. Like Clay had one good game in the playoffs, you know, like, and it was an awesome game, but he like didn't show up offensively in the Lakers series.
And Poole was,
Poole was off in the postseason outside of a couple games too. And so it's just weird, and they have some like weird roster issues too. So it's fine though. Like they'll be fine. They'll figure it out next year and be right back at it. So
no doubt.
And for all you people, the reason why they're asking me that, I live in the Bay. I live in Oakland. So all right. Let's get to why people are actually tuning into this because of the title of the podcast, which is undecided, but it's probably going to be something like Lottery Reaction Podcast or something weird like that. I'm going to rip through some on how the picks played out, right? The back half of the draft was pretty much exactly as it was supposed to be. The Pelicans stayed at 14 and got the 14th pick. The Raptors, they got the 13th pick. The Thunder got the 12th. The Bulls, which the Magic own, stayed at 11. Dallas stayed at 10. They didn't jump back. Dallas gets to keep their pick. Utah gets the 9th pick. Then you have Washington 8, Indiana 7. Everything stayed the same up until pick 5, where you had Portland Trailblazers jumping up 2 spots to the 3rd pick from 5, which pushed Detroit back to the 5th pick. The Rockets jumped back to from 2nd worst record to the 4th pick. Blazers at 3. Hornets jumped up a couple to 2. And then San Antonio had a nice jump to the number 1 pick. Victor Wembanyama seems very happy to be going to San Antonio. And San Antonio, a team known for French players, seems extremely happy to be getting Mr. Wemby, the funny-looking giraffe dude, who's amazing at basketball. I mean, so gaggly, you know, he could.
His mom looks like French Laura Dern. That's wild too. You know,
yeah,
it's a trip.
Like 6'5" or 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah, man, she's up there as well. So
fellas, I had a meeting going on at work that delayed us from being able to record live. So we're recording this the next day. And I was watching the listening to the draft results as I was on my way home from work. What were your thoughts when, and Malik, I'll kick this to you first. What were your thoughts to just like all the hope and excitement that Magic fans were building up about landing Wemby and getting to number 1, or just jumping up into the top 4 in general, and then like us just staying at 6 and Bulls at 11? What were your emotional thoughts during that?
I was amazed at how impossible and inevitable it was to get caught up in the moment. Like, no matter how much I tried, and I was like, well, I just want to get 11-6 and we'll get 2 good players and stuff happens and all. But when, Mark Tatum, who has now become a fixture, he doesn't age when he gets up there announcing the picks. When they come up there and they put up the cards and stuff, you start thinking about the possibilities, especially this time when it's such a big thing to get somebody like Wembanyama that would change your team and change your outlook and change how many games you get and how you would use your players and stuff. I couldn't help but have my imagination be sparked and wondering, well, what if we do get the number 1 pick? In the end, I was happy that we got the picks we got, because there was at least that risk that we might lose the Bulls pick. We might get knocked down from other teams jumping us or what have you and stuff. And neither of those happened at all. But I did get caught up in the moment, and I was like just wondering. And then it was actually that letdown when we knew we just had the normal thing. So like, okay, we just have 6 and 11. Okay, that's fine. But there was that moment where I was just thinking of so many different things and all. So yeah, I don't know if you guys had similar feelings or not.
CJ, what were your thoughts going into the draft or the lottery? Did you think emotionally that we had a chance to jump up? Where were you?
No, I'm securely in the boat. We got our 2 stars. Let's just move on. Like, we could trade the picks. At this point, it don't even matter. Like, we got Paulo, we got Franz. Let's just do our thing. As the picks were coming in, though, like the positioning, I was like, because I want Anthony Black, so I was like, okay, like at 8, 9, I was like, oh, and then we came down to 6. I was like, well, that's way too high for Black. So, but yeah, I mean, we were never going to get Wemby. They were never going to let that happen. Never.
But we almost did. We had the combination. So we had one ping pong ball go. So
yeah. We missed about one.
Yeah. So
I'm sure there was quite a few teams that had quite a few close combinations,
right?
To get there, because it's typically like sort of how it works.
Yeah.
A lot of close misses.
It's nice to not be the Bulls. It's nice to not be the Pistons right now. I mean, just the whole Schadenfreude type of thing. It's like we could be definitely worse off. So.
A lot of people are hating on the Pistons right now. I don't really feel all that bad because, like, man, their best player or their supposed best player, like, got out within like 12 games of the season, and like was out for the rest of the season.
But they kind of forced them out.
They were already gonna be at the bottom half of the lottery anyways, so let's just full on go tank. I don't think they're really out. I mean, I'm sure it would have been nice to be like in the top
lose so
4.
many games and to drop 4 spots in terms of probability. That hurts.
It stings, but I don't think it's bad. I mean, it's fine.
They purposely lost that many games on purpose. So when you do it on purpose, you deserve to fall 4 spots.
Karma came down on him. That's for sure.
Yeah, like K could have had surgery and came back at the trade deadline or something like that. He didn't have to miss the whole season. So
right.
It is what it is.
Then they openly said that they want Wemby, like they were gonna lose to get Wemby. So
everybody was trying to get Wemby. We were trying at one point,
Yeah. 5-20.
My mental approach to this lottery was like pretty chill. Like, we have our star. Obviously, I would love more. I'm greedy. It would be great to have more. But I also am like thinking about how many teams have realistically gotten back-to-back this many times. It is possible to jump, but only one team typically does it. Probably not going to be us. Sure, there's some odds that give us a chance, but it's greater that we don't. I'm just like, I don't know. There's definitely guys that are in this draft that I like that are going to help this team, but I'm not like in love with too many of them outside of like a couple at the very top. Obviously, like Wemby and Scoot.
Don't fall low.
So if it wasn't I don't know. I didn't have an emotional, I'm just like, I'm cool. I was never nervous. Like, whatever happened was going to be okay. With me, just because it's like, we have our foundation. Now, if we hadn't drafted Paulo last year, like, let's say we were at number 3 and we drafted Jabari Smith and we were still looking for our franchise star, there's a whole lot of different pressure on a team that when you need a franchise star you miss out on one compared to you have your franchise star and you're just trying to add to it. Well, we got other ways we can add, but we already got our guy. At least it seems like we do. So I wasn't too nervous. I'm thankful we didn't move back. There is a part of me that wishes the Bulls pick conveyed, and I'll explain real quick. The reason why is I don't have much faith that the Bulls are going to be any better next season. They very well could be just as bad, if not worse. There's possibilities this team could blow up. And if it can, and I don't feel like this Magic team is in a position to really make the all-in move just yet. And we're about, and most of the time, picks lose value after a player is selected. Right? Like, I don't think if we draft, I just feels like you have more leverage with unused picks than you do with used when they turn into a player, unless that player starts outperforming their draft location. Right. And so thinking about the Magic making a big move, like a big trade, we all know we're a little bit closer to doing that now, but it's still probably a little too early. We have one extra draft pick after this year. And it would have been nice unless we make more trades.
Bunch of seconds, but only one more first.
First. It would have been nice unless we make more trades to create more extra first. It'd be nice to have another extra draft pick between now and next summer, when I do think is the appropriate time to make a bigger all-in trade to throw at someone. Now we're hoping that the team likes our drafted players as much as they would covet picks, and now it's going to sting a little bit harder when we have to give more of our own versus someone else's. Or have someone else's to fall back on when we have to give up one of our own, if that makes sense. That's the only sort of reason why I'm like, it would have been nice if the Bulls pick conveyed. But I'm not crying that it didn't. It just would have. That's just a scenario I was thinking about yesterday. Well, it's like, well, shit, now we don't have any more picks except for Denver, which no one wants apparently.
You know, it's interesting. All of us are relatively recent fathers, or we're obviously dealing with fatherhood, kind of the forefront of our mind a lot. So, there comes a point where you kind of finding out that the sex of the kid, especially if you have two kids, okay, what am I going to have? So there's the anticipation part of it, which is nice, but it's also nice to kind of know, what do I have? What's in store for me? So for me to know when we have our second kid that we got a healthy boy. Okay, look at that. We got a healthy girl, healthy boy. They both look all right. They don't look as weird as I do. I know what I got. So there's that same kind of feeling when it comes to the Magic. And that's why I'm looking forward to this year having the 2 lottery picks, because once we make those picks, once we use or don't use this kind of salary cap space, we're kind of going to know what we have. We're going to, get our tubes tied. We're not going to have any more first rounders. Ain't going to have any more craziness. We're going to know this is the direction we have. We're going to have either a really big team, have a bunch of athletes, maybe a couple of shooters, but we're going to kind of know the direction that we're building around. Doesn't mean we won't make trades in the future, but there will be some certainty. There's just been so much losing and so much, I wonder what we're going to have or who the guys are going to be, that I'm ready to have that be behind us. You know what I'm saying? And get to the growing and seeing. I want our guys to learn how to read. I want to see them get a new bike. You know what I'm saying? I want them to go to summer camp. That's what I'm looking forward to those times, rather than hopefully the kid's going to have all 10, toes and fingers type thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
I hear you. CJ, with pick 6 and 11, outside of saying like what players you like, is there any other types of strategy aspects that are floating around your head? Wanting to trade up, like package and trade up? You wanting to trade back? This is an interesting draft class. Malik and CJ, you both have studied this draft a lot more than I have.
Way too much.
This is probably a class that I've not researched enough. So people that are listening, don't like take anything I say worth a grain, because I had like, this is the class I've hardly.
But you're also the voice of reason, though. So remember that.
To an extent, no, I'm not claiming I'm the voice of reason, but if you want to call me that, that's
Somebody
fine.
has
I will not
Right.
honor it.
Nobody.
But I see this class and I see a couple really good guys up top. I see a good group of people between like 4, 5, and like 11 or 12. And I don't see a whole lot of gap differences in between that range, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Then there's some interesting guys kind of like a little bit later in the draft. We also have pick 36. So CJ, just like taking all that in mind, like outside of and we're going to get to some potential draft. I want to ask you guys about some guys you like with 6 and 11, because that is like probably the most likely scenario. But are there any other types of situations that you might be open to using the picks in?
No, I think we should just say 6 and 11. I think at this point, like, the draft starts with us. So we really kind of dictate how things go. Say the Pistons say Cam. Like, if we don't take a SAR and take someone else, then that floods the power, the 2 power forwards further down the board. So you might end up with Hendricks or Walker at 11, or you might end up with Grady at 11. You know what I mean? So we kind of can dictate how the draft goes at 6, which is a good thing. But yeah, I just say stay where we are. We already got our stars. We just need depth at this point, because outside of Cole on the bench, we really don't have anybody else to go to. So just use this as depth, like Malik said. Like, let's just draft these dudes, get them in here, and figure out what we got, and start winning some games and make the playoffs.
Now, Malik, is that the same type of thought process you have, where not really interested in trading up, probably not anyone worth trading back for? You just want to keep the picks at 6 and 11 and draft there?
I think so. Yeah, because all year I've been thinking that we have a chance to get 2 players that are going to add things that this team doesn't have. There's some deficiencies the team hasn't had. Haven't had enough shooting. Obviously, we all know that. They haven't had enough rebounding, haven't had enough rim protection. They could use more rebounding and just really use just an overall athleticism at certain positions. And when you look at the guys that are going to be available at 6 and 11, there are a lot of guys that, maybe elite at 2 or 3 of those things, or elite at 1 and kind of good at another one, or maybe can shore up something, or at a position where we don't have any of that, all of a sudden bring that to that position. So that's what I'm excited about that. And also, I like the attitude that we saw with Weltman talking yesterday. Once again, speaking a lot of words, not saying much, but the overall vibes, once again, were the excitement of, hey, this is where I shine. This is what I do. Let me cook. I want to get these guys in here, interview them, delve into their entire backgrounds and who they are as people, and then pick the ones that we think is best. And so far, they had a pretty good track record. Obviously, some missteps with Mo Bamba and Chuma Okeke, but for the most part, the guys that they've gotten have been, in retrospect, we're not ashamed of who they've picked. And guys like Franz obviously have really blossomed to be, maybe the jewel in terms of where they were picked and that kind of thing. So we're hoping for more of that kind of good fortune to add to the team.
I'd be content with keeping pick 6 and 11. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm also open to packaging up and going forward, but it'd have to be like probably top 3. Gotcha. I don't know if I'm interested to just like
if you want to scoot up, so to speak.
Yeah, to scoot up. I'm not exactly interested in just moving up to like 3, like 4 or 5, because I don't really know how much of a difference in player those are. But I do think like Brandon Miller and Scoot could be worth trading up for. I'm also interested in potentially moving back. Not so much with 6. I'm pretty firm at like, if we're not moving forward, let's pick 6 and maybe we can use 11 to jump back. If someone is really like calling at our door, or if the opportunity is there, you got to have a team open for it. But if there was an opportunity to like use 11 to then jump back into like 20 to draft, we desperately need some center help, and pick up like Derek Lively, who is a pretty awesome center that has a lot of needs that we need as a team. Malik, I know that's killing you on the inside, but I'm just talking about options, because if you also think about,
especially in that range,
we're filling a hole. We're filling a hole with that, and we'd also be gaining back draft capital, right? No one moves up without giving up. We'd probably get some sort of like protected first round pick with that, heavy protections at that point.
Well, and I've always wanted us to move up and back, because some teams move up and around more strategically, picking up picks, losing picks, gathering things. And we've been much more, hey, we are where we are. We're just going to go with it. And God meant us to pick at number 11. You're like, hey, bro, you could help God out here.
And just for your mental sanity, Malik, like, it doesn't have to be Derek Lively. That's just an example. If there's someone at 18 that is another wing that is as good, that this front office sees as just as good as someone at 11,
I'd love to move around,
and pick up that extra capital, because again, we don't have any more extra firsts outside of the Denver first this year. I would love to have more capital to throw at somebody, because in a bigger trade, we're losing our war chest right now, and that's okay. That's okay if these players turn out,
target people, even
if the player turns out, then that's okay. But I also, we have 23 to 32 million in potential caps, 35, somewhere in those numbers, a potential cap space that could open up. Whoever we sign there, or whatever players, because it could be one, it could be multiple, those players are probably going to play, right?
Yeah.
And so I also do have wonders about like time on court for both of these young men that we'll be drafting in the first, and potentially even 36, like, however that plays out. Now, maybe we can convince 36 to sign a 2-way contract. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Now, Malik, I'm going to toss. Actually, CJ, what pick do you want to talk about, 6 or 11, and the players around that? And I'm going to give Malik the other one, because I know Malik can talk circles around both. But I want to know what pick you'd prefer to talk about a couple players in.
Give me 6. I mean,
all right, cool. Malik, I'm gonna give CJ 6. You'll have opportunity to chime in, obviously, and so will I. But then I'll let you introduce 11. CJ, introduce 2 or 3 draft prospects that you like at pick 6 for the Magic within that range.
Asar, Cam, Anthony Black.
All right, let's pause there. Why do you like Asar Thompson? And you don't have to give me like a big draft report. I'm not looking for. I just want to know why they interest you.
T-Mac vibes, like, you know what I mean? He's super athletic, like T-Mac was, so he kind of gives me those T-Mac vibes. And then like he's just like Malik said, he's a piece that we don't have on the team, like somebody that's super bouncy. And for Black, like that's my guy because he's like a floor general. Like outside of Kel, like we have nobody that can run the offense. So even in his rookie season, you could put him in the second unit with Cole, because we all know Cole likes to shoot first. Rather, you know, he's better off ball. We're trying to get Cole to play off ball. So if we get a floor general, point guard, and you pair him with Cole, now Cole can just score more. Don't have to worry about distributing the ball and getting everybody else in the flow of the game. He can just do his thing. So that's why I really like Black at 6.
And you also said Cam Whitmore.
Oh, Cam Whitmore.
Yeah, why you like Cam?
He's just like a freak athlete. He's like he fits the mold, like, you know, but he's more of like, instead of being long, athletic freak athlete, he's just like bouncy, explosive.
Sure.
So, you know,
Built like a tank, explosive, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the front office type of thing. Like they like athletic guys, but more so the longer guys. But, you know, with Cam, you get compact, explosive. So those are my 3.
I like Asar. The Twins are like, their athleticism is definitely intriguing. Their defensive potential is definitely intriguing. It's hard to know the full story around them because they played with Overtime Elite, and they do feel a little bit more raw. But you know, they seem like they seem like they have a good enough floor. From what I've learned recently, they seem to have a good enough floor, but still just raw enough to need a little bit of polishing around the edges, some time and grace with them as they develop over the next season or two. But there's definitely something there with Asar that is pretty dope. Cam, I don't know much about yet. I haven't watched a lot of tape on him, but he seems pretty dope from what I've seen. Anthony Black, I'm a little higher on Cole's playmaking. And I also just feel like we're kind of moving into a place of league where you don't necessarily need a single guy always to set up the offense, because we have more positional ball handling and playmaking just around this team. Like, man, when Paulo starts being able to kind of like put those aspects together a bit more, that's going to be really exciting. We started seeing Franz get a little bit better there this year as well, even though there was a really rocky start in the beginning, but he definitely started getting better. Cole definitely improved in the playmaking aspect of things. Suggs started getting a little bit there towards the end of the season too. So I think there's enough for me not to like target a pure point guard with that pick. But I guess I'm not necessarily against it, but like my thing is like pick 6, you got to have starter level ability in my opinion. I mean, is Black going to ever be better than Fultz?
But in this draft,
that's my question.
If we take somebody that's like, I'm hoping it'll push the right guy at 11.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I just like at 6, like I hope whoever I draft at 6 can push for starter minutes, you know?
Right.
Malik, what about you, man? We did talk, like, give me one prospect at 6 that you really have your eye on that you think, 1 or 2 that you think we should really consider.
Well, one thing that kind of amazed me was as the morning went on, even last night, how quickly all of us as Magic fans kind of retreated into our corners and started digging out you know, battlegrounds and talking points and arguments. And even when you tried not to, like really, I was like, okay, you know, we're going to get some money. But I found myself like Brandon Kravitz, who I really enjoy, just personality wise with Magic personality and stuff. He put out a poll of which players you should get at number 4, but he left Ausar Thompson off the poll. It wasn't malicious or anything like that. Just left it off. So that was my first thing of the day, was like kind of quote tweeting him and doing a video of like, can you redo this with Ausar Thompson, because he's a real possibility at 6. And the actual video that I showed him doing all this stuff where he's shooting the ball, he's gliding through the air, he's reverse dunking, and he looks just like really explosive. He's only up against a chair and some no names, but he looks amazing against the chair. Let's put it flatly, okay?
Yeah.
So, So I'm up here.
I would look less amazing against a chair, for what it's worth.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like all of a sudden I'm cheerleading this guy. I'm talking about Cam Whitmore, that kind of stuff, when I was really trying to be impartial and above it all. And I've spent time with Richard Stayman of Mavs Drafts, and a credentialed NBA draft analyst. But all of a sudden battle lines are drawn. So that's kind of the fun aspect of this, is that you end up championing certain guys. But like I said about adding things that these team doesn't have, Cam Whitmore to me feels like if Miles Bridges wasn't a pleaded out felon, that kind of powerful kind of big wing that can play the 3, play the 4, and really just finish above the rim with contact. We don't really have that on this team. I mean, obviously Banchero can do some of that, but he's doing it mostly off of skill and guile and just being big as hell. Whereas Cam just has that kind of strength and power. And then again, Ausar, I think, CJ put it nicely, is that when we had T-Mac, when we had Penny, there were times when we had the best athlete on the floor, and at any given moment, they might do something that you'd be like, oh, snap. Did you see that? Type of a thing, with the left hand, with the right hand, or just jumping and making it up in the air. You know what I'm saying? To have that aspect. We haven't had that in a while, and it would be nice. So that's kind of what I think about with those guys. The rest of the guys are a little more strategic as to the picks and why you would pick them. But those are the two, having that kind of athleticism to add to Paolo and Fred, because Paolo and Franz are going to make advantages and outthink the game. And to have them passing on the break, the guy like, Cam or Ausar, we could be highlight city, baby. The league pass rankings. You know what I'm saying?
We've missed those types of highlights since Aaron Gordon left,
Yeah.
Suggs has some freak jumps to him. He can be pretty impressive. He's got some explosiveness to him. Cole does too, not as nearly as exciting or threatening because of his size. But yeah, when I quickly expand on Cam Whitmore's draft profile on The Ringer, which is like, I know for deep draft nerds, they're like, hey, get off The Ringer's draft guide, like go somewhere else. But man. I'm not that deep into the draft.
Yeah.
But what I love about this is there's a shades of a semi truck with a Ferrari accelerator for Cam Whitmore. I'm just like,
I love that one.
I can dig it. Yeah, he seems cool. He's definitely someone I have on my, I have a handful of guys of tape I need to watch more of, and Cam is one of them. And obviously now that I know where we're picking, I can be strategic.
Yeah, that makes it easier.
We can become an overnight expert, which is nice.
I used to never even look at the draft until around this time, and then I had a handful of years, in past where I was like, fuck it, I'm into it all season. But now it's a little bit more. All right, fellas, let's move to pick number 11. Again, there's a lot of wings in this range between 5 and 11, 5 and 12, just tons of wings, only a couple guards. The guards that are there are pretty big that you can probably have them slide at small forward a little bit. Obviously I'm going to bring up the Dick. It's the guy a lot of people want. A lot of people want Dick. A lot of people like Dick, if they want to admit it or not. They just want to see Dick stroke the ball. And I'm talking about Grady Dick. Guys,
Grady's a great name, man. What can I say?
One of the reasons I want to draft this guy is simply for his name. I love good nicknames. I love, It's just it's I'm a 14-year-old at heart.
And his is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous name, bro.
Yes.
I mean, what are we doing?
I can at least admit it. I'm immature about it. All right. So
Yeah.
But also he's the best shooter in the draft, right? I don't think he's someone you reach for at 6. Because I don't know if he's a generational shooter, but he looks pretty damn good to definitely pick at 11 if he's there.
You don't want to reach around Dick, that's for sure.
No, you definitely don't want to reach around Dick. You'd rather take Dick head on, just like right at 11. Yeah. Malik, what do you like about Grady Dick other than his name?
Well, he's a big shooter. He's in that 6'7", 6'8" range. Played for, a great program in Kansas. Shows a little more athleticism than you would think, a little more wiggle than you would think. Similar to Christian Braun last year, who at face value, you're like, 6'7" guy didn't have the greatest length, but then you start watching him, like, this guy's doing some things out there. So and Grady Dick's someone who would seem like a plug and play guy, whether it's off the bench, whether it's a big 2 or a little bit smaller 3, that kind of player. So when we're talking about pick 11, that's for us a little more strategic position that we want to take. Someone who fits as a shooter, fits as adding some specific things to the team. So Grady Dick's been a big guy that we thought about. Jordan Hawkins is another guy that has been talked about quite a bit. Maybe a Taylor Hendricks if he falls that far, who's a shooter and a rim protector. But I think most of us have in our mind, we want to get maybe that high upside, high athleticism guy at 6, and then at 11, take the more strategic player that still adds shooting, maybe some other things to the table. And that's why guys like Grady Dick and, that would be the kind of ideal draft to get Cam Whitmore and Ausar Thompson, and then get Grady Dick and maybe somebody like Jordan Hawkins. Jordan Hawkins played for UConn, was their leading scorer. Incredible movement shooter, can come off all kinds of picks and just go straight up, and the ball is just going to the basket at 40% rate. Shows some athleticism that you wouldn't think. A little bit thin, strictly a 2 guard, but still, to get the best player in the draft at something would be a nice change. Instead of being like, we got one of the better. No. We got the best shooter or the best athlete, or like the year when Mikal Bridges was out, and we were like, he's the best small forward in terms of 3 and D. It's like, can't we have the best? Can we have the best once in a while? That kind of thing. So it'd be nice to have somebody like that, or 2 guys like that.
What are you talking about?
Oh yes, exactly. So that was years later and stuff. So, but yeah, that's kind of when we look at 11 to have those type of things for our draft. Grady Dick is just a really, and like I said, all name team right off the bat. You know what I'm saying? He looks kind of goofy.
For sure.
That's why you draft a player for his name,
Yeah.
You need a strong name.
Yeah.
And he's got size for his position. All right. Dick jokes aside, obviously I'm mature. CJ, what players you like around 11 for the Magic to pick?
Definitely a shooter. So this is what I was saying earlier. Like, we control the draft, so we could take like somebody like we could take a SAR, and then we could you're gonna have the 2 power forwards coming up, and then it'll push Grady Dick toward the end, toward 11. So we might end up with Grady just because. So Grady, Keontae George, who Malik doesn't like. Because he's a frail body. But Mike Miller's his agent. I'm kind of putting 2 and 2 together. That might be, 11 might be where we get him. So definitely got to take a shooter, man. Hawkins, he's from back home, so always got to show back home kids some love. Trying to think another person
here's the question. We have obviously Jarris Walker and Taylor Hendricks are 2 guys that are kind of forwards that we haven't really talked about.
I wanted to ask about
at 6
Walker.
or 11. It's interesting to think about those guys. So
they might also fall at 11 too. So then you have those guys. So it's kind of like I said, we kind of control how the draft goes because everybody is in that same tier. But if we take this person, we're gonna push everything down the board, and we might end up, you know what I mean? So. And
Sorry, go ahead, CJ.
All about to say, I'm not really big on taking a forward because Paulo and Franz are like our stars. So come playoff time when they're playing 30, 35 plus minutes a game, like how many more minutes do we have? It might be a Mo Bamba situation where we drafted Mo, we had Vooch, and all of a sudden now we stuck their growth because they're not getting the proper development behind
Yeah.
players.
I do have a worry about that granted, I think there's space in the starting lineup with Franz flexibility to be able to play the 2 and the 3. For us to kind of have a little bit more flexibility there to where if one of these players does develop into a starter, we could probably fit him in there. But there's also free agency. We could be signing a starter to jump in there if we have a good free agency, and so that's going to stunt the path for growth too. But I do worry about that too, because we have 2 top 11 picks. You hope who you're now. Granted, theoretically, not everyone drafted that high is going to work out to be a starter, but the goal is to draft starter level players in that range, and to draft someone and their ceiling automatically being capped at bench because they're playing behind Paulo and Franz. Sure, it helps us with depth, but it doesn't allow them to hit their ceilings. And I think that's just we sort of got to be comfortable with that to an extent, right? We are drafting potentially someone who won't be their best player in a Magic uniform as long as they're playing behind Paulo and Franz, to where if we trade them to a position where they might be able to have a more clear path opportunity, then they might have more value to a team. So I don't know. It is interesting. I was really interested in Jarris Walker. I was talking with our
I'm going to mention that
Remy
for you.
about him last night. Remy and I were going back and forth about Jarris in a positive way. We were both discovering him in a sense. But what do you think about just kind of some of those thoughts and also just Jarris Walker?
Yeah. Well, I'll play a little devil's advocate because
sure, please.
Jarris Walker as a forward isn't necessarily my first choice to go at 6 or necessarily at 11, but there are some intriguing things about him. 6'8", about 240, very powerful body, 7'2" wingspan, so has some rim protection. Does have some skill on the short roll. I keep thinking that people talk about in high school, he did have a little more juice in terms of offensive creation and stuff with the ball in his hand and shooting, that kind of thing. So my mind, I keep coming back to, is there any Bam Adebayo upside to him and stuff? The one caveat I do have is that I do think for me he's a little more of a big rather than a wing, and that he's a guy who's going to be a 4-5 or even a 5-4. However, those are some of the biggest holes on this Magic roster. The backup center has been manned by Moritz Wagner and Gogo Patadze. The backup 4 is the zombie of Jonathan Isaac and the polarizing Bol. So there's lots of minutes open at those spots, and then Chuma Okeke, who's a shell of himself. So if you get him, he's instantly your backup 5, probably your first 4 off the bench, and allows you to do some things. But is he better at the 5 is my question. Then once again, Taylor Hendricks is a little bit more, to me, the Robert Williams type of a big. Now, again, not saying he has the otherworldly athleticism of Robert Williams, but he does have otherworldly rim protection, off-ball sense of movement. He's just uncanny at rim protection. I saw a game in person with him against the Florida Gators where there was a breakaway dunk from one of Florida's more athletic players. He not only stoned the guy at the rim, he took the ball away and dribbled it up the other side of the court. And you're like, wait a minute, how did he do this? Then after the game, in the interview, one of the sweetest kids I've ever seen in terms of interviews. He was buttering up his coach and other players and, giving away credit. It's like, wow, this is a really sweet kid. So those are 2 guys that you could definitely see being part of a playoff roster, being part of a playoff rotation instantly at that 4 and, kind of solidifying defense. And also there's some upside shooting. Taylor Hendricks shot like 40% from 3. Also, Jarris Walker was in that range as well. Much smaller volume, so to speak. But if he's a bigger version of a PJ Tucker in that kind of role, that could be a very valuable player. So again, even though, Jarris isn't necessarily my first choice to be at 6, or maybe even if he falls to 11, I think it'd be a very valuable player if you just added him to the mix of what the Magic already have.
I think there is some space for Jarris to play next to Paulo for sure. But then it's like, okay, there's Wendell Carter there. So like, how does that play out?
I think he and Wendell would play well together.
Yeah, but can you play Wendell? But can you play Wendell, Jarris, and Paulo all at the same time? I'm not sure.
Well, I think Paulo it can be that big wing. You'd have to play Franz at the 2 then.
Yeah.
But some people have want to abandon that immediately.
But then if you sign let's say a 2-3 shooting guard in free agency, man, that immediately soaks up that ability.
You talking about one of them good problems, bro.
This is a good problem to have, but it also is a weird problem because it's like,
I'd love to be weird.
We just finished with the sixth record, which isn't 100% reflective of our team, but it also is where we finished in the league. Yeah. I want players to be able to hit their potential with us, and I'm just not sure we're going to be able to provide that 100%. It's okay. It's okay, but it is a thought in my head. I do think Jarris Walker is cool. I'm wondering where you got the 40% number from. Maybe that is maybe for his shooting. Maybe where I'm looking is wrong. I just have his profile up on the Ringer, and he says 34.7, 35%. So from 3, but maybe they have their information wrong. That is very possible.
By the 34.7. You're right.
But he might have some room to grow there. He does seem like he seems awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was low volume. Yeah, we would have to project that he wasn't a great free throw shooter, but then again, Asar Thompson isn't a great free throw shooter either. Yeah, but he's shown some nice growth as a shooter, that kind of thing as well. Yeah, you got to protect all these guys. You're not getting anybody anymore where it's 4 years of college like Tim Duncan, and you can see
there's risk with all these things.
You get 1 year and you gotta hope.
Now, for the most part, everyone is one and done right now. It's interesting. It's interesting. Well, fellas, we got definitely some good options. This draft is loaded with players to an extent on how you want to take the word loaded, but there's plenty of players in the ranges that we are picking that can help this squad, which is cool. We have 2 draft picks in the top 11, which means there's some positional moving that potentially could be done if we wanted to, forward or backward or out. We're going to
finally use our second round pick this year. I'm already calling it. So
maybe
old takes exposed. Just letting you know.
Yeah, we use it.
We'll see. I have my doubts, but that's for another podcast. So, all right, Magic fans, the draft is Malik. What day is the draft?
June, 22nd, something like that. Yeah, I don't have the actual data, but I know it is. I want to say June 22nd. That sounds right to me. June 23rd, maybe. My mom's birthday. Let's try that.
Let's find out. I'm just gonna Google real quick.
This is great radio right
June 22nd. It's June 22nd. All right, we're gonna do one last thing too. We're gonna go to Tankathon, and we're gonna do
spin the wheel.
We're not gonna spin that wheel, but we're gonna spin the mock draft and just see what that mock draft spin of the wheel. They have us taking Asar Thompson at 6, and man, you are Kaysen Wallace at 11. So CJ's happy.
I want to ask. I'm gonna have to ask CJ after the air why he likes Anthony Black more than Kaysen Wallace. That's an interesting question, but we'll talk about that later. Oh, because they're kind of similar players. So I got you. We got stuff. All right,
Magic fans, tune into the draft on June 22nd. Make sure you have a good time no matter how you want to celebrate or not celebrate this Magic selection. I'm not going to tell you how to feel on draft day. That's all on you.
I will. Cheer the pick.
If that's what you want to do, you can do that. I also am going to encourage you again, if you want to buy NBA gear, click that affiliate link in the show description for the NBA store. There's some great sales. It's the off season. Yeah, that's like a finger pointing down to the show description because they're typically down.
Like Crips and Bloods or something. My bad.
I'm not that cool, bro. Okay, I live in Oakland, but I'm still not that cool. So
be careful though.
All right, Malik, I appreciate you. CJ, I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys.
Peace out, Magic fans.